No, I'm not Esther Nicholson. I think you worked that out right away. Am I on? I'm on? Okay, good. Yeah, I was looking forward to this nice. I've been in Las Vegas all week at a convention for the whole movement, and I don't think I'm on. I'm on here. Anyways, you can hear me. Can you hear me in the back? Okay. Will get me on the tape there pretty soon. But anyway, so I was looking forward to a nice, relaxed weekend, hanging with my friend Esther and listening to her sing and talk. And she started sending me Facebook messages about the ice and the snow, and she was going to drive down to the airport and get an extra hotel room or a hotel room overnight to be close to the airport because it was so icy, and she was going to have to leave at 5 in the morning to make it to the airport. And then it was either that, and she was trying to go back and forth, and she finally said, I just took it into prayer and prayed, and half an hour later, Southwest Airlines calls up and says, your flight's canceled. It's like, thank you, that's the answer to the prayer, you know, so anyways. And so for the next service, we lose both the speaker and the musician because she was going to sing. All of our musicians are either sick or out of town, so I'm going to be singing at the next service. We have some wonderful music on CD for the next service, but anyways. So our talk today is about moving to the light. This month we've been actually exploring facing the shadow, taking a look at the shadow side. And we've faced that down. We've gotten some processes to deal with that, some practices to deal with that. And so it's time to step into the light. It's time to move into the light. Would you agree? Yes. We got a nice bright day to do it. Compared to the lights in Vegas, this is nothing. I walked up in front of the stage there, and I turned around to look at something, and it was just like, oh my goodness, you know, it was totally bright. So there's a wonderful quote in Isaiah, in the Hebrew Bible. It says, arise, shine, for your light is come, and the glory of the Lord shall rise upon you. Behold, darkness will cover the earth, and thick darkness the nations, but the Lord shall shine upon you, and his glory shall be seen upon you. And the nations shall come to your light, and the kings to the brightness of your rising. Doesn't that sound great? Yes. To step into that light, to be the light, to have it shine upon you. You know, in our reading, this is Ernest Holmes talking about the son that he's referring to is the son from the story that, you know I don't like this label, those of you who've been here for a while, the story called The Prodigal Son, which I don't like that label. I really think it's about the loving father. But it's about the son who came to himself, and that was the clue was his life turned around when he came to himself, when he remembered who he truly was. Okay? And when we remember who we truly are, and how many of us have wandered around the wilderness for a while kind of forgetting who we are? You know, in Vegas you can forget who you are really quickly. Ooh, you can forget the light. You know, we were in Planet Hollywood, and it's like this whole floor is just all casinos. You cannot see the daylight. I had to ask my way how to get out of there several times because it's like there's so many markers, and it's relatively dark and full of smoke and pounding music and the casinos and nearly naked girls dancing in what they call the pleasure pit and all sorts of stuff. And it's like, I felt like the son in the far land, for a while. I was so happy when I landed in Sacramento Airport because it's like you can actually see daylight in the airport, Even the airport is full of slots and hard to find your way around, So it's coming to the light. And when we remember who we truly are, we start to remember that. We start to remember the Spirit within. See, in the Bible it has, in the Hebrew Bible, it says, the glory of the Lord shall shine upon you. I take that as it will also shine out from you. Because each of us is the light. Each of us is the light. But we get so wrapped up in this world, this casino, that we forget that sometimes. A friend of mine Facebooked me and said, the casinos make perfect sense if your blood alcohol doesn't drop below 1.2%. You're on a couple of other mood-altering drugs and a couple of other things like that. And it's like, yeah, when we're all, our consciousness is altered. And our consciousness gets altered by the world, doesn't it? I mean, you watch a lot of TV, the news and stuff like that, your consciousness can get altered into fear and doubt and lack and oh my God, that tragedy and this tragedy and the next tragedy and all that stuff. But when we start to clear away the darkness, As Ernest said, when we light a light in the room is instantly illumined. The darkness, there's no fight with the darkness. The darkness doesn't have to go somewhere. It just becomes the light. The light just illumines the darkness. So when we start to clear away our belief in and our fear of our own shadow, and if you remember, we started this whole talk, this whole month on Groundhog's Day, that the shadow really is whose shadow? Our own, yeah. Yeah, we get up there, we see the light, and whenever we stand in the light, we cast a shadow. Which one do we want to pay attention to? The light or our own shadow? We all have a shadow. Okay? But we can either concentrate, focus on the shadow and how powerful that is and get wrapped up in, oh, look at my shadow, oh, look at that, oh, my God, look at that, oh, look at that, okay? Or we can focus on the light. We don't have to overcome the shadow, we just put our attention on the light. And so we use practices like facing our own old beliefs, our old shame, all the stuff that was in there, and finally taking the power away from that and forming new truth-based beliefs. We remember that I am the infinite in form. There's only one presence, one God, Buddha mind, Allah, Adonai, whatever we want to call it. There's only one. It's infinite. We can never be outside of it. We might forget it, like the Son did when he left the Father, but we never are outside of it. The Son was never outside of his Father's love in that whole journey that he made in the story of the prodigal son. Never outside of it. We're never outside of that. So we start to recognize that, and we start to tell ourselves, remind ourselves of what the truth is about us, what the truth is about God, what the truth is about our relationship with God, that it's always on. 24/7, 365, plus a little more. We start to do things like practicing forgiveness for ourselves and for other people. You know, the places that we've held condemnation, that we've gotten stuck, we start to let it go. And forgiveness, if you remember from last week, is just simply letting go of carrying the hurt and the burden. It doesn't mean that we justify the other person's behavior or condone it or make it okay. We just stop taking the poison hoping that they'll die. Okay? And so we let that go. We set that burden down. We simply sit there and go, I'm not going to carry this around anymore. And then we start committing to truth. You know, sometimes that old darkness, sometimes that old casino is really tempting to walk back into, isn't it? Come to me. You know? That's Vegas. And that's life. You know, look at this disaster. Oh, look at this one. Okay? And so it's tempting. It wants to bring you back into it. And so it's taking the commitment, I'm going to walk the path of standing in the light, of standing in truth. No matter what the temptations, no matter what the movies are, they're trying to suck us into it. And so we make that commitment and we start to stand in that. And that's when the light of the Lord shines upon or through us. As we do, we're liberated. As we stand in that, we're liberated. As we start to do our work, as we stop our belief in the old ways, in the stuff that we took on somewhere in our lives. Because, you know, we weren't like that when we were born. I've got a little 4-month-old, 4.5-month-old in my house right now, you know, and he's just happy. He's not sitting there going, am I good enough? Do people like me? I don't think there's enough money for me to survive. You know, he's not into that. You know, and none of us, you weren't either. There's a point in your life where you weren't either, right? You remember that? Or at least you're aware that maybe you were, you know, okay. I know some people don't remember that, but there was. The second verse of this particular reading says, darkness may still cover the earth. In other words, the rest of people may be still working under the illusion. Actuarials, insurance actuarials can tell us what a whole group of people will do. Statistically, they can tell you what a large group of people will do. What they can't tell you is what any individual in that group will do. So we are not a statistic. We don't have to work with the whole body. We don't have to work with the race consciousness. It could be that the economy is crashing. We don't have to have our personal economy crash at the same time. It could be that, oh, it's flu season. I've never had a flu shot in my life, and I don't get the flu. Because I'm very clear that I don't live in flu season. Okay? all this stuff. We don't have to do that. We don't have to buy in. Take a breath. We don't have to buy into that. So the whole world, the rest of the world may still be caught up in the darkness, stuck in their old beliefs of not enough, war and strife is the way to live. And war doesn't have to mean necessarily what's happening over in some other part of the Middle East or something like that. Many people are at war both with people very close to them or within themselves. How many of you know people or have experienced a point in your life where you've been at war with yourself? Okay? And so it's starting to say, the war is over. The need for war is over. Old beliefs such as suffering, sickness, death, and old age. I've got a friend right now who's one of my prayer partners that I'm working with, and we're together kind of trying to work through the race thought, because the race thought of old age is really powerful. And when you get to a certain age, this happens, and when you get to a certain age, this happens, and you should expect this to start failing, and this to start, looking a certain way. And it's like, what? Wait a minute. Spirit is ageless. God is ageless. God doesn't get old. Have you noticed? I mean, not anywhere near our sense of timing. I don't know, maybe God will get old in 50 billion years or something like that. I don't know. But God doesn't get old. And if we're one with Spirit, do we have to buy into that process? Take a breath. I like to use the concept of youthing. I am youthing every cell of my body. Every cell of our body gets replaced somewhere within a year. And if we get conscious about that, if we start to really get conscious about that, we can choose, do I want a younger cell? Do I want a same-as cell? Or do I want an older cell? And our belief system will tell us, it should be getting older, and should be declining, and should be... But it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. So play with that. Breathe that in. So we start to let go of those old beliefs. We start to recognize that we are responsible for our own consciousness. That the casino of the world does not have to set our consciousness for us. But that also means we have to be strong. It's one of the reasons why people come to spiritual communities like this, is it's really good to hang out with positive people. One of the speakers told us that he checked in a day after the majority of people checked in for the convention. And he said that the reception person, the person who was checking him in, the registration person, told him that the registration people had a little game going. And the game going, because they knew everybody was checking in on Monday for the spiritual convention, and their game was, let's see if we can spot the spiritual people before they check in. You know what she told him? What do you think the accuracy was that they could spot the spiritual people? What percentage? 100. 100%. She said the spiritual people were happy, positive, kind, and respectful. She said, by comparison, everybody else was angry or depressed. Okay? And so we hang out with this energy. The most downer, negative person in this community is still probably a whole lot better than most of the average people walking along the street. Okay? Kind of like, the best day fishing is better than, or the worst day fishing is better than the best day at work. Okay? The lowest, person in a good, healthy spiritual community is probably happier than, anybody who's not. I don't have statistics on that, but I have a sense. But we're responsible for our own consciousness. We stand in our own consciousness. We do what we need to do to keep it in that state of remembering who we are, remembering who I am and why I'm here and what I'm about. And so we get support for that. We're responsible for our own awakening. When people ask the Buddha, are you this saint? Are you this reincarnation of this person? Or who are you? He said, I am none of those. I am awake. I am awake. That's all that it was. Okay? And that's where we start to aspire. That's where we start to go. It doesn't matter what the race consciousness is creating. I love Ernest Holmes has a phrase where he says, God plus one is a majority. You don't have to get sucked into the race consciousness. See, even in the middle of that casino atmosphere, the Religious Science Convention was still a positive, powerful experience because we set our own consciousness. At one point in time during the business meeting part of it, we forgot our consciousness And it was actually our own Reverend Barbara called for prayer in the middle of a little contentious debate that was happening during a business meeting. She called for prayer. And it's like immediately you watch the room start to shift the energy. And what was having difficulty getting resolved got resolved within about 5 minutes after that. And so we remember our own consciousness. We stand in that consciousness. So when I come to myself, I am freed of the world mind, and then the Lord shall shine upon me. And so it doesn't matter about the darkness on the earth and the darkness in the nations. When I'm free, the light shines upon me. And then what does it say happens? The nations come to us. The nations shall come to your light, and the kings to the brightness of your rising. So life is drawn to light. Have you noticed? Any form of life. The plant is drawn to light. You know, our little famous groundhog is drawn to light. Gets scared of his shadow, but he's drawn to the light. Law of life is drawn to that light. And so we are drawn to the light, the deeper light, the inner light, the consciousness light, constantly. We're looking for that. That's why you and I all, at some point in time, showed up at a place like this. Okay? Something called us and said, I need more light in my life. Anybody? I think it's... Okay, good. Thanks. I thought it was not just me. What happens oftentimes is we look at the world and we try to heal the world. We try to fix the world out there. Right? Anybody know what I'm talking about? Okay? So we sign petitions and we do all this stuff and we try and fix that out there. I remember when I was young, we were protesting the Vietnam War. And we were about as angry and warlike protesting the Vietnam War as the warriors who were fighting the Vietnam War. Because we hadn't done the work to gain peace within ourselves. One of the things that I admire is some of the peace activists that are working these days have done the work to get peace within themselves and are then finding peaceful ways or ways to come from that peace, from that different consciousness that is an inclusive consciousness. And so rather than spitting on and throwing things at the soldiers, they love and bless the soldiers and do the best they can to stop the war itself. Okay? And it's a different consciousness. So we stop trying to manipulate the world. You know, I've used the metaphor before of it's like a movie screen, and we're out there trying to manipulate what's happening out on the movie screen. You know, the old cowboys in the cowboy camps would shoot the villain, you know, that was trying to tie the heroine to the railroad tracks in the old silent movies when they first saw them, because they didn't understand how a movie worked. Okay? Now we understand if we don't like what we're seeing on the screen, we change the reel. We change what's being shown back at the source of the light, in front of the source of light. The metaphor for that is that's our consciousness. We're projecting onto the screen, individually and collectively as a whole race. And so if we want to change something, we can't change it out there on the screen. We have to change it within. As we find our light, as we change our consciousness, the world comes to us. We don't have to manipulate and force the world into anything. Because the truth is that each and every person walking along this planet, each and every being walking around this planet, not just person, wants that light, wants the love. That's what we're all here for. That's what we're really all here for at our core. And so we want that. And when we find somebody who's got that, we start to respond to that. Okay? And we start to move towards that light. And so we would do better to let our light within shine, to come to ourselves, than to try and force and manipulate everything out there. Emerson in SelfReliance says, a man should learn to detect, a woman too, by the way, his language, a couple hundred years ago, a man should learn to detect and watch that gleam of light which flashes across his mind from within, more than the luster of the firmament of bards and sages. Yet he diminishes without notice his thought because it is his. In every work of genius, we recognize our own rejected thoughts. They come back to us with a certain alienated majesty. When we don't remember that we're the light, we dismiss ourselves. Anybody besides me ever do that? And yet our light, the thoughts that come through us, and you know when you're getting that illumined thought, we've felt that, is valuable, is powerful, is the life-changing energy. What do we want to do? Do we pay attention to it, or do we just dismiss it? Oh, well, it's just my idea. I haven't come up with any good ideas lately. Why should I? Okay. What Emerson is inviting us to do is stop listening to the bards and sages of the other people and to start listening to the wisdom within us. Have you ever noticed how many experts are wrong? You know, we've got these economical experts, they're going to fix the economy this way, and then some others come along and say, no, you fix it this way, and some others come along. Try and figure out what to eat. Right? You know, is chocolate good for you or bad for you? Is red wine good for you or bad for you? All this stuff, it changes practically 6 months, every 6 months, what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to have a high protein diet. You're not supposed to have much protein in your diet at all. All over the place. Not supposed to eat any fats? Oh no, you really should have some fats. Do we pay attention to that, or do we start to listen to, what does my own inner wisdom tell me to do in this situation? Do I listen to the light of my own thought, my own illumined thought? Now, it's not just a whim passing by. The whim passing by tells me that I should have chocolate ice cream 3 times a day. Probably not good. I think most dietary experts would agree with that. But if we listen to the illumined thought, to the deeper thought, it starts to guide us to where we need to go. It starts to give us the answers we need to know. And so we stop looking to others. When we recognize that our light and the light are the same, then we start to move into alignment. And so this week, what I'm going to invite you to do is 3 practices. Yeah, Vegas didn't change that. 3 practices. Number 1, value yourself. Your capital S self, the sacred self within you, value it. Stop ignoring it and start spending time with it. As it says in the Bible, the Son did, come to yourself. And what that takes is some time to listen. It takes some meditation time. It takes some quiet time. It takes some journaling. It takes some way, whatever process works for you, time in nature, to start to just listen to that self. You don't have to sit in the exact lotus position, and chant the exact right chant with the perfect mantra in the perfect posture, and whatever it is that works for you to come to yourself. I have a friend who used to meditate with AC/DC on headphones, loud, okay? And that took him to his meditation place. Does not matter. Whatever it is that works for you, but get to that place. Find that self. Value yourself this week and beyond. Second, clear away any remnants of the shadow. Clear away as much as you can. Forgive. Forgive yourself and forgive anyone else that you've been holding on to. Just do it. You know how. It's just you take the condemnation off. You can do some ritual. You can write it out and burn it. You can, throw it in water. You can, bury it in the ground. You can stomp it out. Whatever, works for you, but just do it. Are we good with that? Yes. Okay. You've been carrying it around long enough. It's a weight on your shoulders. It's a weight on your soul, and you don't need it. And the other thing is to check your beliefs. Are you working with the highest truth, or are you working with old lies? And to just catch yourself when you are. We all do it. We all get caught in it. Get out of it as fast as you can. The only difference between the more spiritual person and the person who's not awake, Michael Beckwith, I love it, says we're all asleep. We're all asleep. Some of us are deep sleepers. Totally unconscious, banging into everybody else because we're not even aware. We're not aware that we're asleep. We think that what we're experiencing is reality. Okay? Others of us, hopefully everybody in this room, is a light sleeper. We know that we're ignorant. We know that we don't know everything. And so we start to pay attention. We start to, to reach out and focus. And we start to question our beliefs. We start to question what we're experiencing. Is this really the truth? Okay? And so this week, spend some time questioning that, questioning your beliefs. Question, when you get triggered especially, what am I really believing here? What am I really believing? And then finally, number 3, shine. And I know some of you here, this is the 9 o'clock service, you're introverts. And I say shine, and you go like this. Who, me? No, not me. To the degree that you're comfortable, and it doesn't have to be a big, huge, outward, extroverted expression. It can be a quiet shining. But let that light shine. Let your light shine. Whether it's big and loud, or whether it's quiet and gentle, let that light within you out. Choose excellence. This is one of the ways to let your light shine. Instead of just getting by, choose to be excellent at whatever you're doing, whatever you're being. Give it your best. Play full out. The other thing with your light is you don't have to force it. The light wants to shine out from you anyways. All you have to do is let it. Make it welcome. Get your, as Emerson says, bloated nothingness out of the way of the divine circuits and let it go. I want to close with a quote from Ernest Holmes. If we could give up our diseases, offer them on the altar of faith to the giver of all life, we would be healed. It is not easy to release our troubles. We are prone to linger with them. Right? But by effectual and fervent prayer, we gradually loose false thought into its native nothingness. God is perfect life, and when we enter that light, we are healed. Let us pray. And so I remember that there is that one presence, pure love, pure light, pure joy, pure good. That truly is all that there is. The rest is just shadow of that. The rest of us is just our forgetting that. But the reality, the truth, is that love, is that life energy, is that beauty, is that light, is that power, is that joy. And because that presence is infinite, because that is all that there is, we are, must, have to be, and can only be one of it. We are that right here and right now. And so we already are the life. We already are the light. We already are the love and the beauty and the glory, the power, the grace, the great good. We are that. And so I speak my word that this week we let that out. We let it out to play. We let our full self out to play in this world. The most beautiful, perfect, powerful ways possible. We let go of our fears. We let go of our embarrassments. We let go of all the stuff. And we simply choose this week to be the authentic self that we are. Allowing that energy to just flow that is already within us. We don't have to force it. We just let it be. And so I know that each of us who is willing to do this finds in our heart of hearts that place where we say yes to this good. Yes to this light that is moving through us. Yes to playing full out. And gratitude for all the good that comes from that, for all the wonderful joy that comes into our lives from playing full out. I am ever so grateful. I release this word, this declaration of truth into a law that moves it into form and expression and experience in each of our lives in the most beautiful, perfect, powerful, and wonderful ways right here and right now. And it is done. And together we say, and so it is. And thank you. So I'll call our ushers forward.